We had been waiting for some more clarity on what Carolina's roster would look like for the bowl game. Earlier this week, we received said clarity. So, NFL draft entrants as of now for the Tar Heels. Corey Gaynor, former podcast, will not participate in the bowl game. Cedric Gray, former podcast, won't participate in the bowl game. Drake May, little quarterback for the Tar Heels, will not participate in the bowl game. Tez Walker's not going to participate in the bowl game. Miles Murphy, former podcast, is going to head to the NFL draft, but he is going to play in the bowl game. So 5 guys, 4 not playing in the bowl. 1, Miles Murphy, is playing in the bowl. There are some significant injuries as well. Guys who will not be able to play in the bowl game due to injuries or surgery to fix an injury that needs recovery time, whatever it might be. John Copenhaver with a lower body injury. Will Hardy with a lower body injury. Elijah Huzzy with a lower body injury. Bryson Nesbitt with a lower body injury. Zach Rice, lower body injury. Lower bodies have hated the Tar Heels. Now, there are 2 players that have entered the transfer portal but will still participate in the bowl game or stay with the team through the bowl game. Jefferson Boaz, who had been Carolina's 3rd-string quarterback, I assume he and Tad Hudson will be vying for the backup spot behind Connor Harrell. And DJ Jones, of course, former running back, now a DB, I would assume would be heavily in the mix along, I'm guessing, with a freshman Caleb Cost at the star position for the Tar Heels. So, Adam, that's a lot of guys. And that doesn't even count, or I didn't even mention a couple guys who went into the transfer portal. Kedrick Bingley-Jones, Kamari Morales, some guys who have played to varying levels. Tayon Holloway in the portal. So, Adam, that's a lot of guys. There will be some significant holes to fill. There will be some significant opportunities for younger players, most notably, of course, Connor Harrell. And this bowl, at least for Carolina, is what so many of these bowls are becoming, as we've talked about endlessly since the Orange Bowl in 2020. These games are more of like a preview of your spring. I used to say preview of next year, but now you don't even know who's going to stick through the spring. So it's like setting the deck for spring ball with how you play in this bowl game.
Yeah. I mean, I think the NFL draft entrance, you could anticipate
every one of those. I mean, Corey Gaynor, when we spoke to Corey, we knew that he had the desire to go to the next level. Whether or not he played in the bowl game, I don't think we knew that. But certainly Gray, May, and Walker, I think we all knew, unlikely to be out on the field for the bowl. The
injuries, some of those were unexpected and really deplete some of the positions.
At tight end, Deems May, who's the son of Deems May from Radio Deems May, is listed as the 4th-string tight end. He played some in the Campbell game. We're saying this, and they've barely started the practice for the Bulls, and who knows? I'm sure he will play some in this game. I'm going to guess he's not going to play the same role that Bryson Nesbitt and John Copenhaver and Kamari Morales played, simply because he's not to the level of those players at this point in his career. And so, and the Tar Heels used that tight end position a bunch this year. So, Adam, this is what has made it even harder getting ready for the bowl. I just took a shot, right, at my depth chart. And so I've got Blackwell, Jones, and McCollum at wide receiver, with Culliver, Paul Billups, and Christian Hamilton, who are 2 true freshmen, as well as Culliver, as backups. Kobe Paysour, will he be available? He is practicing with the Tar Heels. Will he be fully available? Of course, he was injured halfway through the year after that Syracuse game. Don't know. That would certainly be a big plus. I mean, at least for now, you've still, to our knowledge, have Hampton, Brooks, and Hood at running back. Connor Harrell, the starter at QB. I don't know what you're going to do at tight end. Past, I'm sure Deems may. I would assume Deems will play some. O-line, I think you're okay. Lampkin slides to center. William Barnes plays at right guard where he's played something. So, I mean, you've got a relatively stable O-line at Pound, left to right, Pounds, Montelis, Lampkin, Barnes, Rolland. Don't have a ton of depth there. But you've at least got some guys. You've got a lot of guys who've played a lot on that offensive front. That's on the offensive side. Defensively, Carolina's not in as bad a shape defensively. I mean, I think your defensive front, in fact, is relatively intact. The outside of Kedrick Bingley-Jones heading to the portal, and he's already committed to Mississippi State, you've got the guys who played. Linebacker, of course, you lose Cedric Gray. It's going to be Amari Campbell's time to shine. Coaches have talked about him a bunch. I assume he and Eccles will be the two starters there. Depth has already been an issue there, and Deuce Caldwell and Sebastian Cheeks both in the portal. So I've got true freshmen Michael Short and Caleb LaValle as your backups. Star, who knows? I mean, DJ Jones, who's in the portal but is going to practice, and Caleb Cost. And then, Adam, I assume Armani Chapman and Marcus Allen are your two starters at corner. And then Don Chapman, Gio Biggers, Stick Lane, the three guys that'll mix in at the two safety positions. So at least on the front 11, and by that, the starting 11, I think you are decently okay. On the defensive side as far as personnel available, you're getting to a lot of guys who have not played very much if you have to get to some backups.
As you run through that, it really reinforces 5 years from now, we're going to look back on this period and go, that's when bowl games were their most ridiculous. Our feelings on bowl games are well documented, but we can't continue to all pretend like bowl games are the same as they were in the 1980s,
right,
where they're this incredible reward for the players who never get to go anywhere and are excited about a $250 gift card to the Bass Pro Shop.
Well, I'd be excited about that, but yeah.
Players have a deal with Bass Pro
right.
Shop.
Maybe I do too. Maybe I said and told you.
That's true. This has to change. It's going to be even sillier when we go to the 12-team playoff next year.
Yes.
Do you think anyone's going to care about these games when there's a 12-team playoff?
Yeah.
They barely care about them now. These are going to have to become some sort of NIL thing or something in order to incentivize players to play, which would then incentivize fans to care and incentivize fans to buy tickets. Maybe buying the tickets somehow is an NIL thing. It can't be what it is now. It can't be. This doesn't make any sense. We're doing it the way we did it 30 years ago, and things are completely different. No one's even the very first Belk Bowl, you could kind of persuade players that they might be excited to go ride around the Charlotte racetrack in a bus. No one's excited about that anymore. Times are just different. They're just different. And for anybody who's not in the playoff, you've got to come up, and to a certain extent the New Year's Six, you've got to come up with a better way to incentivize everyone to be excited. Like, I think I've gone past the, Tar Heel depth chart is rough. And I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of interested to see what Connor Harrell's going to do.
Right.
But you've got to get Joe Tar Heel fan excited about that and willing to spend money to see it and travel to the game. I mean, Carolina got a huge break by being 2 hours down the road.
Yeah.
This game could be in Shreveport.
Yeah. You could be playing in El Paso with this roster.
Something has to change because this is not the way the world is anymore.
And let me just be real clear. We're not trying to take shots at this has nothing to do with Carolina.
No, the bowl world has to change.
This is the bowl world and the bowl system. And you get this weird, like I mentioned, West Virginia earlier had sold out some of their tickets. So, and even though I got some sternly worded emails after discussing this in the Orange Bowl era, Adam, like Carolina in the 2019 Military Bowl, I go to that all the time. Carolina was excited to be in that bowl because they hadn't been to a bowl in 2 years, and it showed some very clear progress. Now, even having said that, that was 4 years ago, and things have changed dramatically in the 4 years since. But there are still, like, Liberty is going to play very hard in the Fiesta Bowl. I don't even know who they're playing against. Penn State, maybe? Whoever they play is not going to play as hard because they don't care, because their aspirations were to be in the playoff, and now they're playing Liberty, and that's not a shot at Liberty. It's just reality. Let's take Florida State and Georgia, for example. Both those teams felt like before the moment they didn't hear their names called, they felt like they were going to be competing for a national championship. And when they showed the camera shot of Mike Norvell understandably dropping his head into his hands, in the background you saw players walking out of the cafeteria because they were so, or wherever they were, because they were so ticked off. And they weren't just walking out of that room, they were done. And it's understandable. Like, football's hard. It's hard to play. You get hurt a lot. It's hard to get ready for games. And when there's no purpose to it, when there's no incentive to it, I understand why guys aren't excited to play. But to your point, we need to stop asking the fans to be excited about it and then get mad when they aren't in this current landscape. If there's a way to change it, we need to think about it.
Well, and not only are you asking the players to go through something physically demanding, you're asking them to give up their holiday when all their peers at school are going home and seeing their families, and these guys haven't seen their families other than maybe on game day if their families are fortunate enough to come. They want to go home too. They're just like, in this way, they are like many other college students. They want to go home. Or the most elite of the elite want to go to the Bahamas or wherever it's like the NBA All-Star break.
Right.
You don't want to stay on campus and prepare for a game that means nothing and you might get hurt. You just don't want to, for what we all know is a TV show.
You know what's so hard too, Adam, is like you and I both feel very similar ways here. But I think it's hard to give a blanket statement because, like, for example, and I just said these words too. Like, I'm guessing Connor Harrell doesn't feel that way. Connor Harrell's like, yeah, like, I get a chance to show what I can do. And this is a big deal for him because he gets to go out there and presumably start and play the entire game against a good team. And he's auditioning, essentially, to be the starting quarterback for Carolina.
I think he's just auditioning, period.
Yeah, or he's putting some film out there, and if it doesn't work out here, and we certainly hope it does for Connor, then maybe Auburn's like, oh, wait a second, look at that guy. So it's hard to make a blanket statement, which is why it's hard to fix it. Because I do think there's value for Connor Harrell.
But that's an individual thing.
No. Yes, no, I agree. But there isn't, I think it's harder to find the value in the total picture. You can get down to individual cases where there's absolutely value. But I do think the value is lessened on the whole.
But what if Carolina and West Virginia had played in the first game of the year?
Right, no, and I know that's you think the Bulls should move to the beginning of the year. And I've been coming around to that for a long time. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't know, like, what? Why wouldn't you do it? I mean, and again, and I ask that fully understanding there are going to be reasons why. I just can't off the top, on the 10,000-foot view, it makes a lot more sense.
And we've talked to some Bowl folks, even here on the pod, who have tried to explain, like,
remember we asked Malcolm Turner, he didn't like our idea.
Well, it's like a civic thing and it's a town thing.
Yeah, but, and I'm not saying you're saying that, but it's not 1987 anymore. Like, it just isn't. I wish it was. Be a lot faster, more nimble. But it just isn't. And you're right. We're stuck in this place where part of it's moved on, but part of it hasn't. And so you end up with this kind of meh. So
the Rose Bowl has to be at 5 o'clock on New Year's
look at
Day.
the sunset, for goodness sakes.
And then the rest of college football will also be identical.
Yeah. Look, you want to sit on your couch and have your second glass of wine and watch the sunset while Michigan and USC play each other and give it the old college try.
Well, in some ways, we're all guilty because you know as well as I do that when it gets to be December 28th and the whatever bowl game is on, I will turn that on, which is why these games exist.
Yeah.
Because ESPN has to air something between Christmas and New Year's. And these games are TV programming. They're a TV show. And as long as people keep turning them on, that's the incentive to continue. Even if you don't really care, you've got them on in the background and you'll find a reason to care.
Middle Tennessee and North Texas are playing? Yeah, sure.
Oregon State and Notre Dame, that's a wacky intersectional matchup. And it's in El Paso. That rocks.
We know that.
So that's why they survive. But for the health of the sport and playing games that matter, something has to be brought into the modern era.
We've gone on this for a long time, so let me just, for Carolina specifically, I'll be fascinated to see how Carolina's particularly offense approaches this game. We've seen it from the opposition twice. Baylor and South Carolina both went into their respective bowl games against the Tar Heels in 2015 and 2021, and basically were like, guys, we're not going to do anything that we did during the year. We don't have the personnel. We're going to snap it to a running back and basically play option football and see if they can stop it. Spoiler, the Tar Heels could not either time. Is it the worst thing in the world to have Connor Harrell and Omarion Hampton and or British Brooks and or Caleb Hood sitting up there running a lot of read option football? We know Connor Harrell's fast. We saw that against Campbell. And he's skilled enough to throw, obviously, that you can build that part in. But I can't imagine Carolina, well, I shouldn't say that. I would be somewhat surprised if Carolina called this game like they called the other 12 games this year. I would think this would be a different approach, whatever that means or looks like, I don't know. But you play to your strengths.
Connor Harrell's biggest fault is that he's not Sam Howell or Drake May.
Yeah.
I mean, Carolina fans are accustomed to, okay, I assume this quarterback will be a first-round NFL draft choice at all times. Connor Harrell may be that. We just don't know it right now, and so this is something Tar Heel fans aren't accustomed to. If Omarion Hampton doesn't get at least one snap in the Wildcat, I'm going to be disappointed because I've seen other teams do that to the Tar Heels, and it seems very effective. Now, will the Tar Heels be able to stop West Virginia from running the ball without arguably two of their best defensive players? That is a concerning part of the game.
West Virginia's had some guys go in the portal too. A lot of wide receivers. I think they've had 8 so far, and I think it was maybe 4 wide receivers, 3 DBs, and a nose tackle, and maybe 3 of them are guys who played.
Can I ask a question? Why does the portal not open after the bowl games?
I think it has to do with getting to being in school at the places when the second semester. That's part of the reason why all this timing's so funky.
Right.
Is the whole key is the second semester of school and you being enrolled. Like, for example, the Tar Heels have a quarterback from a different school that has, we probably can say his name, but I'm not gonna. Take that.
Much like the Bulls, we're going on the 1990s rules.
So who's committed to Carolina out of the transfer portal? So my son was like, can he practice or can he play in the bowl game? I'm like, well, he's not actually enrolled at Carolina yet. He can't actually do that until the second semester starts, which is January, whatever. It's just part of the reason why it's like this awful confluence of things that make this the oddest time of year between coaches changing jobs, signing day, with early signing day, which is now the only signing day, even though there's another signing day that nobody pays attention to. Second semester starting, transfer portal, NFL draft decisions, bowl games, like it all. That's part of the reason it's all so dumb is the timing aspect of it.
And it makes it super awkward for the individuals, like this individual you're talking about is still enrolled at this other school going to class, but he needs to work out. Can he still go to the, like we saw this with Carolina basketball players in the spring.
Right.
Like you've said you're going somewhere else. Do you still have access to the gym? Do you still have access to the weight room? And I think Hubert Davis has wanted to be very specific in handling this as, yes, you have access to all that stuff. You're a Tar Heel until you depart physically. There are other places where that is not the case, which makes it so awkward for the person, for the person in college. But again, like it's partly a business decision also. So it's hard to feel as bad as you might have 10 years ago. Like, oh, this youngster just wants to do the bench press. That's not all that went into it at this point in time. So just could we just modernize the rules just a little bit? That's all I'm asking.